Free Speech Friday here with Scott James and in studio, Stephanie Foley. Now, Stephanie's father, Steve, was beaten on his way into work at a local nightclub back about 3 weeks ago now. He was beaten pretty badly. He was unconscious for about half an hour and some pretty severe injuries. He's got to go for an MRI and a whole bunch of tests. That's why he couldn't be here today. The big thing with all of this is these two suspects that were charged, 2 out of 3 of the people that were there while Stephen Foley was being beaten, are still in custody, but Stephanie, you believe that the charges initially weren't exactly what they probably should have been.
I totally agree with that, actually. There was a comment that was made in the Medicine Hat News by the police department saying that they aim as high as they can for what they feel they can prove in court. After reviewing the evidence and seeing everything, I'm having trouble understanding how they could not prove this to be anything higher. This is clearly aggravated assault. In the criminal code, it states that attempted murder, for the government to prove somebody of this, they must be acting intentionally, deliberately, and with extreme disregard for human life. My dad was unconscious when they continued to kick him. They left and came back to my dad. How is that not intentional and deliberate and
premeditated?
And premeditated. They actually, that's another thing. That's all my dad remembers. He was putting a can of Coke in his bag, and he heard somebody say, "Like this guy here." He looked up and everything went dark. He couldn't even ID these guys. He doesn't know. He never spoke to them. Like this guy here obviously tells me there was some sort of plan to do something. They knew what they were going to do, and that bothers me. It does.
2 out of the 3 suspects charged are cousins, and combined between the 2 of them, over 50 convictions.
Which include assault.
Domestic abuse. The list obviously just goes on and on. People are wondering how these guys are walking the streets of Medicine Hat. And now again, this is something that's obviously disappointing to you when they get charged with assault and robbery, but they're not charged with anything more serious. Now, some developments in the case yesterday. You were down at the courthouse when the Rock Thunder cousins were in front of the judge.
Yes.
And what happened there?
Well, actually, the first sign of hope actually happened there. The whole family just kind of exhaled when they announced that they were going to postpone the assault charges to be reevaluated and see if they could walk up the stairs with them as opposed to walking down the stairs with them. So let's just cross our fingers and hope and pray the Crown prosecutors really looks at this case and considers their 50 previous charges and considers the fact that it actually upset my family that when they were brought into the courtroom, into the prisoner's box, it was like a night at the Roxbury. I don't know how else to explain it. They started waving at the crowd. They waved at the judge. They did their fingers to their ears. "Hey, call me." And joking. And they had big smiles on their face. This was such disrespect to the court, if anything, I felt anyways.
Mocking the system, mocking
That's
your dad.
what I thought. And then they leaned over the one gentleman leaned over the I don't even want to say gentleman. I take that back, actually. Terrence leaned over the glass and stared my family down for what felt like ever. And we just stared back. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm sorry, but are you trying to intimidate us? Because I'm sorry, it is impossible to intimidate the family of the man you almost beat to death. Like, are you joking, buddy?
Well, after 57 convictions between the 2 of them, you have to admit their respect for the court system is probably next to nothing.
Oh, of course.
You know, they're 26 and 27 years old. 57 convictions convictions, not charges, convictions between the 2 of them. How are they supposed to respect the justice system when they're still out walking the streets and robbing people?
Exactly. That's what I wrote on the website. Like, our family is asking, why did this happen to my dad? Why did this happen to my dad? Well, when these guys can be walking after 50 convictions, why not? If they can beat a man senseless and have it just an assault causing bodily harm, why not? They'll be out in a few months, you know?
Yeah,
why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they?
Absolutely. So the glimmer of hope is now you guys have been in the Medicine Hat News.
Yeah, thank you.
Neil Tellman has written many articles about this. You've got almost 3,000 people on your Facebook group. Now, you're not taking this lying down, which is absolutely fantastic and part of the reason why you're here today, and I thank you for coming in. I wish your dad could be here. I really
do.
But
he wanted to. He just has a doctor's appointment.
Which is obviously very important given the injuries that he sustained.
Yeah, we got to keep up on that. Make sure he's okay.
So some developments in the case. They're considering upgrading the charges, and I think that this is obviously, you know, a second thought by the Crown because they see the local uprising, and people are really offended and upset by this, and I think they should be.
And you want to know something? I think that's great, and I seriously, truthfully, my family cannot thank these people enough. That there's people on the site saying they've emailed Monty Solberg and they've sent out letters to all our political figures and to news stations all over just trying to get some. And if that's why the Crown did this, great. But I'm not saying I don't care why they're doing this. I just care that they are. And if this has to do with it, yeah, right on. This is what more people should be doing, is standing up, right?
Absolutely. And in a town like Medicine Hat, that's likely to happen, which is absolutely fantastic. And one of the reasons that I'm so proud to live here. Now, if people want to do something, you have an online petition on your Facebook page.
Yeah.
They can search Stephanie Foley in the Calgary Network. They can search me, Scott James, in the Calgary Network. You can get a link to the Facebook page and the online petition.
Which is Justice for Steve Foley. It's a group.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Stephanie Foley, for coming in today. I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
All right. The lines are open at 548-8296 for Free Speech Friday.